So it'll show up in just a second. Give it about 20 seconds. Hang on, let me see if it's on yet. I forgot, where are you at? Where are you located?
Serious? Cleveland. Right
What?
now, it's going to be interesting. I'm relying on you. I'm in Cleveland. Oh, there
Oh,
we go.
that's right. You're in Cleveland. Okay, is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there it is. Yeah,
if I hit share,
yeah. Or I can tag
I
you
can
on
do this on mine. Wow, I'm so technically not
it. Yeah,
sophisticated.
edit.
All right. Well,
I'm just gonna
you know,
tag you.
I
There you
think
are.
I just hit shared and it looked like it
All right.
worked.
Well, I just tagged you as well. So,
Okay.
yeah,
I
we
see
still got about.
myself on two screens. Okay.
Isn't that
Well, really, I don't need to really discuss all this online. Hi, everybody. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a techno nerd.
Thank God. All I can say is you're carrying the same frequency I am today.
Oh, gosh.
I know. I was like, yeah, Kayla's coming on, and did I pronounce your name right,
Yes.
or is it Kayla?
No, Kayla. Yeah. Kayla.
Kayla. No, I was like, okay, because I was telling Morgan, a couple days ago you were coming on. I was like, yeah, because at the end of the show, we started to get into the work with the children, right? You work with children.
Yes, actually, most of the show, I was just reviewing just to see what kind of fun stories I already told and which are yet to come. Um, yeah, at the end
Uh-oh.
of that show, I had no idea
What?
what I said. or
Hey, that's
what
how it
it
is.
sounded like.
th-
Yeah, it was like this big blur and it went by so fast.
That's how every show is for me.
Yeah, I bet.
I never watch them again. I when I edit them, if I cut little pieces out, I'll watch a little bit, but it's very difficult to watch them.
It, yes, it is. I didn't until like 2 hours ago.
You know what it's like? It's like when I'm a little older than you,
No,
but
you're not. No, you're not. You're a baby. Happy birthday, by the way.
thank you. But like when you were a little kid, so this would have been in the '60s for me, and like tape recorders came out. All the electronic stuff came out, like the transistor radio
Tape
came out, and then
cracks.
you have a tape recorder, a little cassette tape recorder, and you hear your voice. Do you remember that? And it was like weird, like that's not me. I don't sound that way. But and then yeah, I guess we got used to it over the years. Like with voicemail and answering machines, and you hear your voice. And but when I go back and watch a show, it's the same type of feeling. It's all weird. So I'm like,
I
I don't want to watch. I don't want to hear myself talking. I can't do it.
Yeah,
But
I
but
don't. I've gotten better with hearing my voice. I don't like my voice. I mean,
yeah,
for years I refused. I refused to listen to anything. Um, Again, same things you're saying. It just doesn't sound. But
yeah,
I've worked a lot on throat chakras over the last 10
yeah.
years, and I don't know if it's actually loosened a little bit because that's obviously
Oh, I think you do
a big.
great. You're very natural. Very natural. So yeah, I thought we could talk about that a little bit, and but also like this little period, this first part of December seems to be pretty interesting. It feels like um, like a expansion of the distortion and an expansion of the individual. It's kind of weird.
Say more about that.
Well, like on a personal level, even given all the fluctuations over the last few years, especially like since COVID came out, like there's been so much self introspection, there's been so much growth. I mean, most of the people that come on, they're like, wow, I mean, it's moving so fast and etc. Um, Still go through different types of energetic pressures
Yeah,
often.
an expansion of the distortion is
Well, the expansion of
how do you experience that personally?
well, like to me, like the expansion of the distortion is the COVID thing, or the mainstream media's narrative, which is just, it's laughable, like it's so
Right.
obvious what's happening. So on one hand, you have this like knowing that, oh, this has all been written about, it's all been talked about, and it's actually happening. And it's like, well, almost like watching a cartoon, because it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, all you got to do is like look at the president. Like, can you imagine having a president getting on camera 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? I mean, I think about the JFK Nixon debates, if you ever watch any of that.
Yeah, I
How
love that.
polished, how polished JFK was. I mean, but anyway, so you see the Distortion, the movie, getting expanding rapidly, but yet we're expanding individually. So there's like this dual kind of stream running. One of them is like, wow, this is really getting weird, and how far is it going to go? And then the other one's like, wow, um, I don't know. Like I'm not just a human, and it's really starting to set in. Like you can't kill me, or just it's because it's one thing, I think, to hear cliches, like even like from the 90s when New Age started to become a thing. But there's so much embodiment going on now. I love Freddie too, man. Freddie's my brother in Salt Lake City, in Dory. Yeah, so
Yeah,
how's it been? How about you?
well, in regards to that, I took the plunge and got rid of cable,
Mm.
probably middle of October, and switched to antenna. So I've got Me TV and Smart TV and the real Star Trek replays if I get really
You haven't,
hung up.
you said
So
an
it's,
antenna. Are you
well,
talking
so
about,
it's local TV. So I got rid of cable and I
so you
didn't
got like the
replace
old
it with,
antenna, like from the 60s?
well, there's a bypass box
Yeah.
for, whatever
Yeah.
DV
Yeah.
there
But I mean,
is.
you're tapped into that signal, that
So
local
I
signal.
got myself off of all of the news channels, basically, is the moral of this. So, just the default of throw on a TNN or MSNBC, and I know all these frequencies, stay off
Yeah.
the news. And it was just like this default that I would try. I'd actually take my TV and stick it in the corner for a couple of weeks
Yeah.
and go detox that way. And um, but I finally got rid of the cable box. So if I don't catch the 6:30 news, I'm usually not watching news.
Right.
So it's really strange. I can go a whole 7 or 10 days. I didn't even know there was this variant, which then that it's like, wow, what happens when you don't listen to the news? So I've got
Right.
my
Right.
okay Google, tell me the news kind of thing every day at least. And so it's made a huge difference. I mean, people say when they
Yeah.
detox from the news, and I never knew that was true. It really is.
Well,
So
there you go with the embodiment thing, because the embodiment thing is such a subtle thing. I mean, it's coming and it's coming and it's coming, and it's in these very human ways. Morgan just sent me a video a couple of hours ago, and it's of this girl. I think she's either Austrian or maybe German. So it's got English subtitles, and it's like 8 or 9 minutes. I put it up on my wall. But anyway, it was really interesting because she was very young. She looked to be like, she could have been 15 or maybe 19 at the oldest, maybe even younger. I don't know. But she was talking our language, and she was just talking about that she called it the unlight is speeding everything up because they know they're out of time. And
wow.
then the other side of it, the self-awareness part of it, and also the collaboration aspect of that, like we're all here together with the ground crew, that's starting to sink in. But the thing that stood out the most for me in that video was she said, we didn't come all this way for nothing.
Hmm.
So let's keep going. Let's, let's locate people of a like frequency and just hang around them and come together in that way, kind of like what we do here and what we do in other platforms like this. But she said, and then work on creating a parallel reality. And I thought, wow.
What a wise
So
kid.
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like a totally separate consciousness, like in the example of what you're talking about with your TV and not knowing about the new variant. Like if it's not in your consciousness, it's not going to exist. or if your consciousness is focused on, say, just doing these things that are atypical of our recent history, like coming together and just having conversations and letting the illumination come from that, as opposed to some kind of construct within the construct that's not even real. You know what I mean? Like trying to apply 3D polarity structure to a new consciousness. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I thought, well, maybe that's what we're doing. Maybe we're all creating a new parallel existence, and that is the, the new earth, or how they talk about the divide and all that.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
yeah.
maybe that's the way to do it.
I've heard people say it's just not in my reality or my consciousness, and never
Yeah.
really knew what that meant until, again, we have that experience for ourselves.
Yeah.
On that same line, it's just made me realize today I'm just really in a weird kind of place,
Yeah.
and had to find a way to get out of it because I knew we were coming on. So um, I
I didn't know that's where you were going with this, but that's exactly how I felt. And all I could think about was the last time when I was in the same state, basically. And I said, I can't go on today. And you're like, well, I understand, we rescheduled. But I was thinking about that 3 minutes. I mean, I'm walking around with a pair of shorts on. I don't have a shirt on. I'm just like trying to get over here. And I started to think about that, what you just brought up. And then I was thinking, you know, it's 78 degrees over here today,
wow.
like, and humid. It feels like summer. And then I looked at the this little news site I go to for the weather, and it said there was going to be this massive storm come in, and it's going to be 26 in 2 days, like in 36 hours, with a snowstorm and tornadoes and all this. But right now the air is just like still, like there's no wind. There's no, I mean, it's just weird. And I thought, wow, this fits how I feel. And I wonder if it's just a localized thing or if this is something that's more prevalent.
So are you saying that you probably would have canceled if you hadn't already had information? Because you know what, it wouldn't have, I don't want to say it wouldn't have surprised me in a bad way, but it was, not seeing
Well,
promo.
that's what I'm
And
saying.
I saw yourself last night with the kids. That was awesome.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God, that was great.
your son is a split. I mean, just the picture they showed the hour before on your that little short video vignette.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That,
yeah.
I watched that after I saw
Oh,
the show with
yeah,
the kids.
yeah,
Would have swore it was your son in that picture. I mean,
yeah,
truly, you guys look
yeah,
exactly alike at that age.
yeah.
Cute
We did.
family.
We did. Thank you.
Did you have
Yeah,
fun?
yeah. It was wild because Morgan sent me some roses. I never had roses sent to me in my entire life, and they're beautiful. I mean, it's like really nice, like from a local place, I guess. And she set up Hung with that interview, and Hung is always asked the best questions, and she's so down to earth, and that was fun. And then I didn't know, I just knew that there was a guest, a mystery guest, so I didn't know. And my daughter was here visiting me, which was the first kid that ever came to see me, the youngest one, 19. And so she's all getting ready and stuff. I said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "Oh, well, I'm going to go on with you." I'm like, oh, all right. You're going to pop in and say hello. And then next thing you know, the other daughter pops up and then the son pops up. But yeah, so at the end of the day, I took her to the airport, 4 o'clock in the morning, came back, laid on the couch, and I'm like, man, I am exhausted. But you know how when you're really exhausted, you're going to go to sleep, but you can't. You just got to like
Right,
unwind a little bit. So I'm
right.
laying on the couch, and I just started thinking about everything, and it all just came in. It was just really, really profound. It really was. And then what I don't do is I started watching the show, and I never do that, like we were talking about. And I just laughed my ass off the whole time. I had tears going down my face. I mean, it was a multi-dimensional experience. It was very beautiful, and many people, even like people that watch and stuff, it's all one big vortex. So it's just like I'm grateful to be in it.
Yeah. Well, it's very cool to have kids close to their father.
Yeah.
So just that witnessing of that, alone is really powerful.
Well,
It's not something that all of us can say is true.
yeah. Well, I've got one that doesn't talk to me, but I don't think the connection's any different. I really don't. I just think there's something, whatever, like we can all relate to.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah. And I was telling Morgan last night, I was like, yeah, I'm watching this show because I'm like laying on the couch. I'm like, I can't even keep my eyes open. And we happened to message at the same time or something. I was gonna go to bed, and I just called her on the phone because I couldn't even see. And I was like, yeah, it must have been full of codes. Like that's why I think like just conversations like this, they're full of code. We don't know it, but they are. It's just like getting up and getting on here, the both of us, when we both could have easily just went to bed.
Just showing up. Okay, so here's the deal. When this happens for me, like even earlier in the month, like last week, I started going into this deeper need to really go within and do some heavy lifting work. Just kind of in this whole reset, what's happening in January, whatever that is. Um, and I wanted, it's like, I can't see myself getting on this call, getting on this show and the energy and all this stuff. And it's like, but how do I mean, one, first of all, the 3D
Yeah.
programming is, oh my gosh, you have an opportunity like this. This is the last thing you ever cancel out of. Okay, so that's the business professional promotional
Oh
thing
yeah,
that
yeah,
goes on.
yeah.
And then the second was, okay, well, it's nothing personal, but it's just Todd. Okay, now he,
Hmm.
he lives in the moment kind of guy. There's 10,000 people wanting to get on his show, so I'm convincing myself that this would be okay to say, schedule me for January, and then I had a reversal in about 48 hours. So this want to, don't want to, resisting,
Hmm.
what is the resisting as of even this morning is like, this is the last thing. So I wouldn't have been disappointed if you can't. Okay, so bottom line of all that, here's the deal we can do. When I'm in this much resistance,
Uh-huh.
for whatever reason, there always is a reason.
You're
And
right.
what it
Right.
usually turns out to be is the most awesome, unexpected
Yeah.
thing. And so let's just go with that. So
That's what
whatever's
I'm saying.
happening tonight is going to be
That's right.
amazingly awesome. And let's just,
I think well, that conversation that you have, I always say that's the big Todd, the little Todd. I have those conversations all the time, you know, like, and, but I think it's part of just the embodiment where like we're coming in because everything's totally different in every aspect of our life. I mean, it's becoming more and more apparent how we communicate, how we schedule, and so on. And I think it's just part of the characteristics or the symptoms of the transition that we're making. Like, for example, I was talking to Morgan, I'm like, man, you did all this. I mean, it really meant a lot. I mean, it really did. I mean, I know we're close and all that, but it was a really seminal moment for Todd. So I was telling her that. I said, how did you do this? She goes, well, everything I was trying wasn't working. And, she was looking at it from that standpoint. And it's exactly what you said. It was all perfect. But one of the things she was talking about was how trying to get the kids to agree at a specific time. And all of them would acknowledge her messages, but they wouldn't commit to a time. So she just put a time in and then just said, I'm just going to trust that everything's going to work out. But I think that's how it works. I think that's what we're fading into somehow.
it is, and I don't know where it's going. Last time I was on, I was 3 weeks from having just left my
Yeah.
mainstream job and was still in this awesome space, and I'm trusting and I'm allowing and I'm excited, and it's now in the second month. Um, and it's Christmas time, and I truly miss the kids. If anybody's on the call, you guys, I totally miss you. This is the longest I've not had a session in
Yeah.
4 years.
Wow.
So it's really, parts like, oh, they're not going to come back. Yeah, the ego. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, they're not going to come back when I'm ready. It's just relax, just chill out. It's all
Yeah.
it's supposed to
Yeah.
be. Um, but the little fears creep back in with the finances and with the how is this going to happen, and then what happens for me, and I'm sure anybody can relate to this, we're in this wonderful allowing state, and it flows and it's beautiful, and it truly
Yeah.
does flow when we're there. And then the tension creeps back in, and the more I let that stay there, just the more intense and scary it gets. And it's like, how do I get back there and all this stuff? And so it's a couple times a day, depending on
Yeah. At
which
least.
hour it is. And it's like, just don't. And then I want to jump the gun. It's like I had this plan laid out and it felt comfortable. And thank one of your viewers. Last time I was here, somebody reached out and said I can assist with a website. That hasn't happened yet, but it prompted me to move, in directions and at least get some action going. So that's been cool. But to just like, oh, maybe I'll just start the groups again.
Yeah.
So it's like getting off the plan because the fear is setting in, even though the plan is right.
Right.
So it's kind of like really messing up with the divine, and
Yeah.
I'm doing it myself. So today I was in this little pity mode party, and it's like, oh, just get out in nature. And it's like, when are you going to start listening to me? One little, just do what you think. It's not your thought. Go out. So I went out and just went to the metro parks, which I have the luxury of having nearby. And just started really appreciating the fact that there's parts of the country that don't have this.
Yeah.
And went a little further, and it's like, oh, I don't want to get my feet kind of wet and mud, go a little further. And then it's like, okay, I'll just go 20 feet further and stop and wait. And so I spent an hour outside. It's upper 50s here, which is unusually warm, and it's going to drop down to the 20s in a couple of days, like you were saying. But it was so amazing. Like, how do I forget how amazing it can be? And all I have to do is move from here to there. But it just takes so much energy sometimes, mental energy mostly,
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
that. But it just shifted everything back to okay plus. And
Yeah. I think it's, I don't know if it's why do we forget, but I think we're just not used to it. Like, Morgan has a saying in another regard. She'll say, if you look for the bullshit, you're going to find it. So, like, as we were going through, this would happen, like, as we were going through these transitions these last few years, all of us, the projections you see on, like on a post or comments, I mean, just different things that, we're going, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. But it was really talking to us, taking us to the 0 point, taking us to, neutralizing polarities and stuff. But
yeah.
I don't even know why I got on that rant.
Okay. Well, I know what will get my energy
Oh,
up.
I know what I was going to say to you. Okay.
Yeah.
No, you go ahead, because
No, you first.
I just
You
heard your
go.
frequency. Yeah. What do you want to talk about? Go.
Well, that's just where I was going. It's like, where can we go with this? Because everybody watching right now is like, are they going to start talking about anything?
We
Um,
are talking. That's the whole point. See, what you're talking about, you were saying it's kind of like, I don't remember the word you used, but like blocking the divine. This little Todd, big Todd conversation, little Todd keeps going, right? And I don't know if it's that so much, or if we're just, it's the big Todd's moving in, the soul's moving into all of us, right? The big Kaylaa's moving in, and we're just not used to not being on guard. You know what I mean? If you really think about it, I mean, if you think about relationships, you think about, going, into the city at night. I mean, there's always this thing about being on your toes. And I don't know, this new energy just seems to be very accommodating, so accommodating that you're going, there's all this crazy stuff going on, but yet here I am. I left my job 3 months ago. I heard that voice very loud. Yes, I'm scared at times. Yes, I'm in fear at times. Yes, I'm in victim consciousness at times, but I'm getting there. Like, that's the real thing to me. It's not all this, you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to eat this and you got to do that.
yeah. And that's where I really, okay, transparency time. Hello. So we're all a work in progress. And what I was realizing as I'm outside today, it's I fall in my worst place when I start comparing.
Yeah.
And not being active with the kids, trying to get a website up to actually articulate what I do, how I do it, and then all the stuff that goes along with the business end of this, and you know, the Soulogy and the promotion and all that stuff. Um, as I'm focusing on there, I'm realizing finding words to articulate this is really tough. And my conclusion, rather than going with, okay, just allowing it to transform or, you know, emerge, well, I'm looking at other people's websites for ideas and I'm hearing people talk, and it's like, what are other people doing? I don't have exact photography. That's okay. What are their websites looking at? All that stuff. And then it's like, wow, they're working with kids. Isn't that interesting? Oh, they're doing the same thing. I don't even know what I'm doing with these kids and what's so special about me and what's my niche and how am I different from, you know, the conscious youth that I left. And all of this stuff just threw me into this great space of a void. I mean, sometimes nothingness is a really good place for something to bubble up, but staying in it without telling the story and the narrative connected to it is really hard. And that's where it's been, okay, what I've been all over the map. So it's really been a challenging few days. And every now and then, you know, thank God I've got great friends that are patient beyond God's patience.
This is a perfect description of being awake. It really
The
is. To me, with the energy, the way it's been as the years gone on, everybody's being purified. You know, I don't know how else to put it. And you mentioned the word mental, and it's interesting because there is some mental, uh, you know, productivity going on there that's can be a bit depleting at times. But what you're describing, this is what I've been going through. This is what Morgan's gone through. I'm sure that this has got to be rampant, where the pace of the change or whatever you want to call this or the transformation is affecting everybody, every single person. You know, Patricia Cota Robles, she was talking about the kids.
I want to go there. So I'm glad
Okay,
that,
this is
yeah.
perfect. She's talking about the kids. If anyone didn't see it, it's very interesting. The kids born after the harmonic convergence came in with no karma, blah, 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 went on. That 2022 is the year. And then you have synchronistic moments like my kids coming on last night, you know. So that's a totally different frequency. It doesn't communicate through how to and teaching you something. It's just a frequency. And that's what I hear you talking about. Like I'm going out looking at these other people and you know, I'm already had my own ideas, but now I'm like wondering what, you know, I'm the same way. I was the same way this morning. And I won't get into the details, but it's the same thing.
Oh, darn it.
And so here we go. But what I'm trying to say is that at the very beginning of the show, which I'm finding to apply to everything, is it's about, you know, not about, but I mean, I noticed that if the more relaxed I am, the more comes. And that it's almost like programming from how I feel. Like I had the thing with the finances. The first of the month just came, and you know my kid comes in town, and you know so I didn't have there wasn't anything there. It was, you know, like $300 or something. And I started to go into it, and I thought, you know what, just let go. Like, you know, not, I know that sounds easy, but just relax, just know, just trust. And then boom, all these people, you know, stepping up with, you know, little gifts, I guess, you know, contributions for the birthday. And I don't know, it was just this amazing thing, but another imprint on this is how it works. So like, to me, it makes a lot of sense, especially when you can talk about it with another person who's experiencing the same crazy, confusing stuff that you are, yet you still show up, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I literally 2 hours ago just got a text message that I won't talk about, because it's, I want to say it's too good to be true, but mm, I can't even say that because it's a confirmation of this is how it works.
Mm,
So it's so I'm in this like middle land of divine gratitude, yet need to be in a place of 3D discernment on where this is. I mean, I'm cryptic right now, but there's like I'm about to be blown out of the water in, oh my God, this is how it works. If
right.
this is all for real, it's like you can't plan this, and this is how this is. So what's amazing. I mean, you just I could just feel it. So this is all real. This is just going to be
Yeah.
when in doubt. And you were saying it on your calls in the last couple of days. Ask, and it's
Yeah.
immediate.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
how simpler can it get than that? I mean, a genuine, heartfelt asking, deep surrendering. I do breath work every day, and that is just showing up. Like some days, sometimes I don't even want to breathe. Well, that sounds weird, but you know what I'm saying. Um, but it's just showing up. And in that process is my statement to source
Yeah.
that I'm willing. I
Yeah.
may not mentally be willing at the moment, but I trust at that deeper level that, okay, I'm here. I'm here.
The mental's taking a beating. Let's just say the mental is very active. You
It
know.
is. And let me ask you this, because this is one of my struggles is, okay, so we have a heart space that's our higher heart is our opening to source and where it all starts. Yet we're also human, and as we were designed with a divine mind and a
Mm,
divine heart, and when in sync, that's how it works. And being overly mentally programmed all my life and left brain analytical and math major and all these other things, my quest, which I shouldn't even be on, is like, what does it feel like to be in divine mind versus regular mind? And that's been my question of the last month is when I'm in sync, I could, oh my gosh, I mean, writing just comes, it's
hmm
beautiful, it's sometimes it's automatic, sometimes it's divine, just sometimes it's action oriented and it's smooth. So it happens, but then how, I don't even know if I know what the question is, but you're seeming like a mental kind of guy too. But
No,
like
I'm
what
saying, yeah,
divine mind and heart, when that's in
yeah,
sync, how does that feel different than when my mental mind needs to take 3D action? Because
right,
we need to
right.
act, we need to
Well,
live, we
do
need to
we?
plan.
Do we need to act? I mean, I think this is a great point. I saw Robert Sepper's last video production at Lantine Gardens a couple days ago. It's, um, God, what was it entitled? But, it had to do with like the soul. And in that production, he talked about the brain or whoever he was citing. He's an anthropologist, so a lot of times he'll let the people he'll play videos or read their words. But how what role the brain plays. So when I think of the brain, I think of the mental, and then the mind to me is I'm with you, like the heart and mind of spirit is soul. Like when that's alignment is soul, and then what you're talking about with what I would call like transmitting or channeling, whether you're writing, speaking, creating art, that's that space between that you're talking about. How do you, what is that and what's the difference? But I think what's happening is, for me, is the mental's playing a different role with my conscious effort, which isn't just like, oh, no problem. It's like the big Todd Todd discussion happens, and when the little Todd starts speaking, how am I going to do this? I'm getting tired of scraping by or whatever the program audio is.
Truly programmed, yeah.
That instead of what's happening is with conscious effort, I'm going, hey, I hear you. Thanks. And I'm taking it in as information instead of taking it in as a narrative, right? So I go, okay, so this little Todd, who's just as important in some cosmic way, the same and equal to and is one with the big Todd, that's kind of representing the human. He's giving me this information, and what's that telling me? And again, then it goes and it's like, okay, just chill out, relax. Near death experiences. That was the name of that production. But that's where it keeps coming back to. And it can apply to work or relationship or going to the store or uh, planning anything or not planning anything. You know, I mean, I got 200 emails again. I'm like looking at it going, okay. But I don't know. I think it's the mental, Franco talked about an active consciousness. He said, you have this and you have this and you have this and you have this. He said, but the human has an active consciousness. Now, the active consciousness is made up of different parts, such as the voice of the body, the mental mind, the ego, and so on. And how, in a way, that was kind of changing. Like it was becoming more balanced, I guess you would say, from our perspective. And then having discussions like this with myself often, and with people like you, then I just go, maybe we're just aligning. Maybe it's just as simple as that. Maybe, and for me, that kind of takes me back to the relax, because this is happening. So, get a surfboard and try to ride the wave.
Yeah, yeah. And then what is the mental programming that we've been subjected to? And the more I'm aware of that, sometimes the less I want to be aware of that, because it almost like is its own trap of provoking fear. But
Mm-hmm.
at least it catches me in, okay, so what is keeping me small, and are
Yeah.
things out there built in to keep us small, which is a great, okay, let's loop into the kids, because people are like, why is you not talking about the kids? So this whole brain, mind, thought control, self control of our thoughts. Um, it, if I could do nothing other than teach kids that, I mean, how brilliant would this be? I mean, 60, 55 years of not knowing that myself. I love Joe Dispenza's work, um, and the whole biology of belief and how we program our environment and all the effects of that and the emotional blockages and what we hold in our body. Just because I've had experiences of that myself, I know firsthand. Um, and to catch a kid, oh, there we go. I got a story for you. Um, Finishing that thought, to catch a kid early in life to make a subtle shift. Oh my gosh. And not have to go through the process that you and I have to deliberately work hard at.
Oh, you mean the Yellow Brick Road?
Oh, yeah. Get it while it's still narrow before it expands and has three or four different alternate routes. Um, One of the reasons that I discovered why I went back to this place of employment in August. I'd been there off and on for 15 years, left a couple times for hip surgery, whatever, but I just kept being drawn back to this really, really difficult environment. Um, and it was easy to say yes to a job offer in August. Was put in a classroom to work with third and fourth graders. And this is the first time I was in a class where physical violence was not the main foundational issue in the class. I mean, again, these very traumatized kids, really angry, really emotionally disturbed by whatever label you even want to use that, but they've had really incredibly difficult lives. And to survive, they do whatever they have to. And reactions to life are intense. And so this is the first time in, 15, 16 years being there that I was with kids that their raw emotional condition was evident because
Mm,
the safety was not first. Usually it's breaking up fights or being physically attacked or whatever. This was just in the moment. So we've got 9 and 10-year-olds, 8 and 9 year olds. Um, the story in particular. So I'm sitting with four of these kids. We're doing a simple name poem. If you've ever done this as a child, you write your name vertically, like TODD, and it's a description of who you are.
mm,
So, who is Todd with the first letter starting with T? So,
mm,
it's like adjectives. Now, again, these kids are fourth grade, functioning at a first grade level just because he hasn't had time to learn, all this stuff. So, we're just doing a fun activity. And this kid had an unusual name and a lot of vowels, which was hard for me to figure out, like, what kind of descriptions. So the teachers are talking, and it's like, Mr. So and so, what do you think? Give me some description words for, like, we'll just say Johnny. Um, and one letter started with an I. So we decided to just go with so and so is, and then it could be any word in the world.
mm,
So let's just come up with, and we're helping this little 8-year-old. Very complimentary words. The average person would start feeling, wow, this is what they think of me. This is really cool. First thing he does, and this is emotional disturbances. First thing he slams his head down on the table and he starts kicking the table. I mean, something 0 to 60, something just happened here. So I'm like, okay, so I'm basically talking to the top of his head, like, what just happened here? Can you, breathe? Wood? Can you tell me? Da 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 da. And he's truly, he lifts his head up and he says his name, and Johnny is stupid. And he puts his head back down and he's sobbing. I mean, the tears are coming down. So
wow.
his first self-talk word that came out was to label himself stupid. It broke my heart. I mean, it just went in so deeply, and we were able to kind of get him back to a baseline of at least finishing, and we got him through it. Thought about it all weekend long. And normally that it doesn't, I mean, it affects me, but that was bigger. And this is after coming back 2 years of doing all this spiritual work, working with these kids, and the first time really being engaged at a different state of being. And I knew we needed to talk. I knew we'd be taking a trip around the building or something just to address that. And he came up to my desk, and he's about eye level. And I said, and the other kids weren't paying attention. So I said, when you said you were stupid, I said, that really, really hurt my heart. And I don't believe you're stupid. And you know what? I thought about you all weekend long. And this little kid looked up and he goes, like, you thought about me? Like nobody in the world has ever felt him special enough to think about him like that. And it was like this immediate heart connection. So I'm talking to him and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you can't read like the other kids, and I know it's hard to watch this, and da 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 da, and but anybody who knows about the stars is not stupid. You are not stupid. Yes, you can't. It's because you've got so many other things going on in your head that you don't have time. You don't have space for the learning to happen. And our job is to help you get rid of some of that stuff in there so you can learn how to read, so you can do all the stuff that you're totally capable of. Well, this kid, I mean, like, boom, he wasn't, changing eye contact, and in this time of COVID, it was such a heart connection. And it was only appropriate to end this interaction with a hug. And my mental mind, like, is this okay? Well, we're all in masks. Before I even had a chance to answer my own question, this kid just like asked me if he could give me a hug.
Wow.
And then the next time, and we pretty much made this deal that I would help him learn how to read. Well, the very next day in class, we've got this book out. Now, this kid literally sight words are beyond his capabilities without a lot of struggle. And we're reading Little Engine That Could. I had the 4 kids in the class and reading aloud, and everybody, this kid's off somewhere, and his kid's throwing a tantrum in the back room, and little Johnny is there reading aloud. Now, every word, every third word, but there was a willingness to put himself out, and I'm just like practically tearing up, and next time I made a commitment basically to him that we were going to read that book by the time, we're done. And then here, like, I left.
Perfect book too.
And so I left them with, and I've got it right here on my desk, and I showed him that I did. I left him with this little placard that says, "I think I can. I knew I could, and believe in yourself." So I laminated it and gave that.
Really?
I put my
that's like the great. I used to love to read.
But this kid, and he found different ways to then bring that conversation back. He'd come up or he'd raise his hand. He said, when I said I was stupid, I mean, and it just was so endearing, the innocence of how else can I get more of that from you? And he's sitting there one day and he looked up at me as we're reading and he goes, "You're my best friend." I'm like, "Oh," and then I'm reading a little more and he says, "I really love you." And then so here I am in this heart thing, yet I'm in a public school. Of course I'm going to respond back, "I love you too." But now how to do that so the kid doesn't go home and say, "Oh, my teacher said she loves me." And then like all 3D heck breaks loose, So it was just this, but it was like this kid's life in 24 hours shifted for him. And what I told him was, there's probably people in your life that tell you that you're stupid. And I'm going to tell you that I want you are not stupid. And the next time that someone tells you, you say in the back of your head, "Guess what? As Kayce says, I'm not stupid." And believe that. And I truly believe that went in, and in such a powerful way. And if we can get kids who, again, by 7 years old, are destroyed by the messages that they're internalizing. Wow, and then we wonder why some of them are the way they are, or are depressed and suicidal by the time they're 12. And, it's really intense.
And then looking at their role, which is not going to be stopped. I mean, situations like this are absolutely abundant, especially since so many of them are not able to fit in. So they're labeled, Asperger's, ADHD. I mean, there's a lot of different, but one episode like that, and that was also what I noticed about when you were talking about basically putting a prayer up, and how you were saying that, I was talking about how it's coming right away now. But like when you make that appeal, it was coming from a Trinity intention, so you want to serve. Like you were saying a minute ago, God, can you imagine if I could just do this and just work with children and, not have to worry about all that stuff, so to speak. But I think that's why it's being reciprocated, because it is so pure, just like your exchange with him. Like that frequency is the same frequency, and really the job was done when he took it in and, aligned with it, which is that's something we can replicate in every moment that we live, in every interaction, really. And again, the other thing that came to mind was he felt worthy, I guess, right? And I could relate to it because we all have our internal evolution, of dialogue between the big aspect and the little aspect. But yesterday, I could relate to that when you were saying that. I could feel him because that's how I felt yesterday. That's how I felt when I got on the couch. I thought, wow, you were, you know, that's what it felt like. It didn't come to me in those words, but it was just this feeling of you are more than okay. You're actually worthy. You're something like that. Like what he got from you, like what you
Yeah.
told him. Just remember, I don't think you're stupid.
Yeah. And that's another thing that came to me in the park today. And I don't know why this would the big lie. The big lie is not about the big T or the election or anything. The big lie is how we believe that we are not God. I mean,
Yeah,
how do we take and me? I mean, I this worthiness is the theme, just from my own childhood and upbringing. And when it comes down to any fear or any issue, if I go deep enough, it is that inability at this point to totally embody myself as source. Because once we get that, it doesn't, what is all this other stuff?
yeah.
Um, but
I
it
don't think
to
I
me is
don't.
like that's the lie. How are we
Yeah,
so programmed? And if you look at the big Earth experiment and all the downfall and the
mm,
AI and all that stuff, that's where we aren't focused because we're channeled and directed to focus way over here.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we're programmed to even be programmed to think. It's so crazy, isn't it?
I shared another video when I shared the one with the little girl on it, and it was Emery Smith or whatever guy at TV. I pop in on it every now and then if I see something interesting, and they were talking about the period from Roswell through today, and how the whole thing, this insider or whatever, he was German, uh, was basically saying it's all been a setup. It was staged. It's all been like a graduated disclosure, and it's coming to a head now, so they can share all this information. But the way the guy was explaining it was that each one of these episodes, like the TikTok they had in California, and then they had some more TikToks, UFOs around some pilots that were doing some stuff. That it's not about it's about implanting it into the consciousness so that it can get to a point where it accepts it. So I look at embodying the same way. If I had to embody my fullness in this moment, I would probably disintegrate or lose my mind, or
Right.
So that's why I say I think there's this more of an aligning pattern that used to be like expansion, and then everyone's like integrating for 2 or 3 weeks, and then it comes again, and but now it's just like this kind of thing. I mean, and it's a little bit unnerving, but I think that when it's all said and done, that it's all right here. It's all in that active consciousness. So, like, to me, like self-determination, self-reliance, people say sovereignty, it's not about our acts, it's about our thoughts.
It's
Like,
totally.
no, I'm just not going to accept that. It's just like you're a student. I am stupid. I am not stupid. I mean, it goes that deep. Um, I think the narratives have really started to lose their weight. I know it feels that way with me. I'm like, why am I wasting any of my time and energy? Not that I do a lot of it, but enough of it, any of it is too much. Like, I'd rather, if I'm eternal, do I want to sit here and, you know, pick sides or throw rocks or tell everybody about, the royal families or reptiles or whatever it is? Or do I want to collaborate, and try to align with that frequency that this boy in you connected on, that I felt yesterday? I mean, this whole truth authenticity, raw, real, whatever you want to call it, transparency. There's some serious gold in it
Yeah.
because there's no
And
BS in it. That's the whole point.
and we really need to do our work in that regard so we know how to relate to these kids. I
Yeah,
mean, everything you and I are saying, I'm just really aware right now of. If you ask the child, like, how is this fitting in? When you ask Teddy, like, what are you making of all of
yeah,
this
yeah,
worldly stuff? It was really, I
yeah.
was very curious to his response, and it wasn't, a lot of detail or anything, but it was almost like, well, there's people saying this and people saying that, and almost like he wasn't married to any one of those and was just kind of free flowing. Um,
Yeah.
I really am craving to get in the mind of some of these kids. I have a lot of experiences with them, and
Talk show. You already have a database of kids.
well, that was discussed in the organization for me to really have like a YouTube channel and interview kids. And there's so many layers. I mean, if you really do the conspiracy thing, um, I mean, some of these kids are, according to Mary Rodwell, she's got kids that are being tracked,
Oh, I'm sure.
and these kids have
Yes.
amazing abilities to where what's the fine line of exploitation,
Yeah.
and I get very protective of, yes, some of the older teens. We've had conversations about this, and it's like, just reel it in a little bit, let your abilities grow. You truly are developing. You're
Hmm.
not meant at 13, 15, whatever, to be channeling universally, because
Right.
that comes with another whole layer. I mean, it's just like these child stars, they'll tell their
Yeah.
story, and
Yeah.
just they're overwhelmed by what comes back at them. And these
Well, I wonder. I
innocent,
wonder.
these aren't delicate kids, but the purity of who they are, uh, they the universe has their back, and they're here to learn what they're supposed to learn. But
Yeah.
do we need to make it harder for them?
Would
You
we
know,
make it harder?
would we?
I don't
Don't
know.
you think?
Well, I don't know because like going back to the like your appeal or my appeal prayer, and how it comes right back if the attention is if everything's aligned or some of the other things we were talking about. Is it our if it's quantum and our belief is there's a threat, then there's a
There'll be a
threat.
threat.
But
Well, right.
if our
If my
intention
fear is
is
that the kids will be exploited, the kids will be
yeah,
exploited.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because that's a real. I mean, that's another thing too. Like
and it's
you
my
brought up.
fear. It's my
Well,
fear,
yeah, but
not
yeah, and that's
necessarily
how it all
anyone else's.
works. Yeah, I
Exactly.
mean that's how it all works. But I remember you brought up Teddy, and I remember he said at the end, after all, we all create our own reality. And
Seriously, I'm like,
you're right about something else too. Those kids, not just mine, but I mean I had a few on the show, and I mean just they don't say a lot of words. They like speak in fewer words, and you get it. Anise said, or Isabel said something too last night. I couldn't remember what I can't remember. Oh, she was talking about, and I was there. I didn't know what she said last night. That one instance where she was being held down. She heard him talking in ET language. I was there for a lot of the stuff that happened, but yeah. So, but aren't they? They're us. I think we're all being tracked. It just depends on what perspective you want to look at it from. But yeah, I think that intention, that alignment that we appeal from, we can create from. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it kind of gets down to trust, and
yeah,
that's really it, right?
yeah.
I mean,
I
that's
mean, I
really
would love to do something like that. Again, I'm in my enough of my own
yeah,
3D
yeah,
62-year-old
yeah,
what's really going on here. And I mean, I've made with these kids. And that's where I'm very open to learning from messing up, but it's really hard. I don't know how you parents out there, I just hats off, because
Yeah.
the self-forgiveness that requires, I
Yeah.
don't know if this incarnation I was capable of that. And maybe that's why I didn't end up having kids. But it's like knowing that your child is hurting because of something you did or said.
Yeah.
Well, it just really is probably one of the biggest challenges that I've gone. I've had a couple of occasions that as an aunt, oh my gosh, what did I really say? And not too many times, because I'm a cool aunt, but a couple times with the kids, the energy, their abilities, their empathic abilities. And I'll
Yeah.
do I just came to some healing around this and acceptance. I had one of my sessions that when I do private sessions, I we kind of sync up with the breath, we sync up with our heart space, and it's just the two of us. And there's some like guidance in that energetic presence that I talked about like last time I was on. And it's really powerful. And a session not too long ago, I set the container for these kids when we begin. I've got my little rock here. Did that show up? And I did it a little differently. We did grounding, and we opened up, and we called in guides and set a container. And I had the kids connect to each other. And I did it through a heart to heart, see yourself connected. And it was, to me, it was this beautiful light web tapestry. Halfway through the group, one boy, you know what, I they got to cut their cords. They got to cut their cords. What do you mean? It's like, well, I'm getting bad stuff, and and it was really disarming. And I'm like, I know he picks up entities really easily. It's one of his gifts that he's coming into. And so this big, really difficult session happened. Then he ended up getting off the call, and just a lot of processing. Fortunately, I had a guest teacher on that I could let's talk about what just happened here, because this was more intense than I've ever experienced. And talked to one of the other 17-year-old girls and asked her, what did you observe? What did you experience? Let's just understand this, and wanted to check in with these kids. And as it turned out, having these kids connect was, I pretty much not allowed, but that situation happened. This intenseness happened because I didn't know the potential for the effect of that kind of energetic connection. I mean, these kids are raw, undeveloped powerhouses of empaths and every other thing. And they're bringing in kid things. This little girl lost her cat. Somebody else is this, and they're bringing that in because it's a safe space to talk about. And here somebody else is overwhelmed by the sadness.
Wow.
And seeing the effect it had, it took me days to forgive, quote unquote, forgive myself for, how could I have not known this? I mean, I've been working with these kids for 3 years. How can I not know this? And it really, honestly, until about 4 days ago, processing yet again with somebody else, I learned. It's all about learning. We're working with each other to go deeper. And it's like, thank you, universe, for that wonderful opportunity. And the next time I see these kids is going to be a teaching opportunity for them to say, hey, guess what, you guys, when that happened, this is what I realized. And this is how when you go out in the world, if this is what's happening to you, how to do it differently. So I needed to reframe it. I needed to find a different perspective for myself as the adult who, quote unquote, should know better. But at the same time, you were talking last time, what do I learn from these kids? It's like, oh my gosh. And then what I learned I can give back to them
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's, one of them probably would benefit from hearing that. And the
Right.
next time I set this container, obviously we'll do it differently while still having a sense of energetic community, but it was like, whoa,
See, and
that,
look
that hurt.
what you're doing. See, and look what you're doing. You said, wouldn't it be cool if I could do this, this, and this? And you're doing it. I think there's another thing that's come into my field recently, and it was from something I watched, and I've heard it before, but I took it deeper. I guess I understood it deeper, embodied it, and that was, there's a whole, uh, wide variety of people's opinions or whatever you want to call it on what is multidimensionality. Like if you get down to the nuts and bolts, how many lives am I running right now? So this particular person, not that I advocated or don't advocate it, but they were saying there's basically 13, 12, 13. And they're all happening. And that this is the least real, right? Like this is the least real. Energetically, in other words, we're accomplishing so much more. That's why I keep thinking that what we're feeling or what we're getting used to is alignment, because it's just the human part of us that throws in, that's been susceptible to these programs and all that stuff that we're working our way through. But that's something that made a lot of sense to me in the last week. And I thought, well, that would change too. If this keeps happening, we're going to have more awareness of what's already occurred and therefore has already occurred in the energetic field. And we're just basically watching the replay. What we're doing is we're trying to present the replay to our consciousness, and the guy running the projector is like, modifying the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think this is great because it's just a conversation, and through this conversation, you said one thing a while ago, and that was, wouldn't it be great if I could do this, 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 and this? And that was truly a Trinity intention to me, or a Trinity dream. And that is to serve self, and serve the collective, or serve your brothers and sisters, serve the collective, serve yourself in equal stroke. And I think that's the kind of intention and action and thought that the universe is reciprocating so rapidly with, as you were talking about, and I was talking about yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't believe we made it through this damn thing.
Wow. Well, one final thought.
Yeah.
Back to your, what's her name? Patty?
Patricia. Yeah, I noticed she had her name Patty up there yesterday. Patty.
Yeah.
Robles. Yeah.
The same thing happened last time I was on. It was the day or two before watching your shows that just totally shifted something else for me. Well, between Ryan, Melchizedek, and her, watching those two back to back, that's incredible information about the shift that's going on, the solstice coming up, this 40-day period, just all the astrological 9-year cycle. There was something else. I literally transcribed most of what she said just because it's important. But the message that I took away from this, we're big people and benefiting greatly by this. Her whole conversation was talking about the kids.
Yeah.
I need to talk to the kids. These kids need to know this about themselves. I mean, what valuable piece of information to say, this is what's happening to you. And on 2021, this year, you are going to have codes activated like never before and springboard you into what you're meant to do. It's like, how important is that for them to know this?
Yeah.
And the group I have, I mean, it's called Young Ascended Masters, which is really kind of a Jesus story in the choice of that. But I recently split it into younger kids and teens. And one of the first sessions I had with these teenagers is, okay, let's just get real here. and talk about what being a teenager is. You know, they're going through ups and downs and cycles and hormones and pulling away from parents who they've been really close to and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, do you know that it's a normal transition time as a teenager to start a spiritual quest, to start asking these deeper questions, to not get answers to why you're here, what's the meaning of God, how do I relate, and need to go in. And it's okay that, you know, and let me tell you from a parent point of view, your parents are going to take it personal and they're going to be hurt by this. And that's okay because this is your journey, you know. But my point being, we know so much about kids and we need to let them know so they developmentally can even understand what's happening to them. And I think it's a missed opportunity as this solstice is. I wasn't planning on meeting with kids until January, February. And it's like, you know what?
Why wait?
I haven't. Okay. So here's my announcement. Everybody's listening. I think, shoot. Okay. So here's my big self goes, okay, step all into this. And what if we just have an open mic night? Not open mic, but
oh, that would be cool.
It's like, oh my gosh. Oh, harmonic conversion. So kids to age 30, if you're born after 1987, let's have a solstice meditation activation night. And as I'm taking my notes on what she presented, it's not my information, it's not channeled, but if this is what people are saying, let me tell you what people are saying about you.
Yeah.
Feel it, hear it, whatever. Have an activation. I don't even have to activate. They can activate themselves. So let's just have a meditation and call in whoever your guides are and whoever your family is, and let's just have at it. And it's just so exciting to like feel that. And then my little self comes in saying, "You don't even know how to do a Facebook Live. How would you?" And then promoting it, and then it's all of a sudden it's like shrinks right back into.
I'm watching.
Oh my God.
I'm watching.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lag.
You
I'm watching 3 or 4 people. They've been on the show. Friends of mine. I guess, you know, everyone's a friend. I mean, I don't mean it that way, but I'm familiar with them. And I can think of one. I can't think of the exact people now. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so, and they're all starting to do videos, and this is like in the last few weeks. And there's 8 people, or 8 views, 12 views, 18 views. You know what I mean? It's slowly going up, and I'm finding it damn impressive. I don't mean like, you know, specifically the content, but it's the energy of it. There's something about it. There's something about seeing, you know, that transparency or that, you know, moving past embarrassment or moving past fear or whatever. I don't know how to explain it, but I think the kids have that. See, they have that. And it's like, because we've lived it. It's like trying to be taken away. It's like a power steal, you know. But you mentioned Ryan Melchizedek. And
boy, he was something else.
well, I found out something really interesting because I pay attention to the metrics, and I've done so many shows that, you know, I think I've got a pretty good finger on it. You know, I can figure things out or see the trend, see whatever. And so I was like, what is it that there was so much magnetization, so much engagement, both on his first one and then this one?
You're not promoting it any differently. It's just
No. Well, see, I was looking at that because for me, there's a lot of things I resonate with more and some less. And I'm not saying with him it's either way, but I'm just saying I'm looking at this objectively, like say as a producer, like somebody, Todd's just part of the what's in my, you know, realm of creation. And what I did was I went and looked at the demographics on the two most prominent pages where metrics are available for Soulogy. And I found out that they break up the age groups, 18 to 25, and then 25, 35, 35, 45, and only 3.3%. And I got to think Soulogy is somewhat in proportionate to, let's say, the collective light worker, starseed, whatever you want to call it. 3.3% were 25 to 35. 3.3%. So I think what it is, this is just my early hunch, is that because we've had some other young people on this year and they did extremely well, even more than he did. Okay. We had this one 18-year-old girl that just was like, it was just an aberration almost. But anyway, I think what it is when these young people who haven't been prominent in these communities, which is primarily 35 to over 70, right? When we're exposed to that frequency that's different than ours, but carries that familiarity, that soul kindredness, because it has the same characteristics, which is just being themselves, right? Truly being themselves. Like, even if you look at my kids last night, I'm laughing on the couch, but I'm also laughing in a very profound way, because I'm looking at, wow, they're absolutely being themselves. Like,
Totally.
it could have just been talking to dad on a Zoom privately. Nothing would have been different. And I think that's what Ryan is a symbol of. And I think, for me, as part of the collaboration at Soulogy is to look for, that group, like 30 and under, like you're talking about, and start to find that frequency and share that frequency, because I think it has some type of subtle under the radar code that we're all clicked onto, and it's all another continuation of the merging. The thing about the kids, though, is that within that merging, there's a huge expansion, an influx of this more pure, less tainted, unconditioned, no right or wrong. It's just that that's where they came in, and it will have a huge expansive effect on us. Like she was talking about, Patricia was saying, basically, they're the teachers. She was basically saying, as we get into 2022 and all this starts to happen, they're basically going to blaze the trail.
And I was fascinated by how she said that there were kind of like millions, billions, and obviously you can't put a number on souls, I don't think, but waiting for the earth to get to the place of the harmonic conversion so they can show up. And what I got from that is, like, however many, whatever time is, that I picture them like kind of hanging out there. And she says they're just soaking in knowledge and the answers to all the problems that exist on earth. So they're already coded and programmed with the answers that are needed. And then it was time for them to come in.
Right.
So
right.
And
Go ahead.
And hopefully it's not all programmed out of them by the time they get old enough to get out of the human child expectations,
Well, I think that the human child expectations is is a program that's being seen for, because that one thing about what's happening
it's
is
breaking down. It's breaking down.
Yeah, everything's being revealed.
Not in probably as many numbers as we think, because that's our world. But
the whole awareness thing is so important now more than ever, because it I remember Morgan told me when I met her a long time ago that awareness is the first step in transformation. And I was even talking to Denise about this last night on the way to the airport. It was like, say, more on a personal level about her and her life, and I just said to her, well, now you're aware of it. You weren't before, so don't judge yourself. Just move on. And I just told her what Morgan had told me way back when. But I think that's another thing that's happening too, that we can't really. They represent a lot of things, but I think one of the things that they absolutely represent, just to try to frame stuff up in words and descriptions is they represent the new timeline. They don't operate the way we do. So they actually are more aligned with our natural nature. And so I think the biggest thing I remember something Anise said last night. She said something about there's nothing more, there's nothing better than being understood, like being heard, being understood. And I
Wow.
think that's kind of like what you're doing. You're just having the intention to want to converse with them and pick their brains, their mind, and see where they're coming from. That's what you're doing. You're giving them something beyond validation, and because they're already a superhero, they're going to turn on like we don't turn on. They're not going to turn on like somebody who's 60 or 55 who's been waking up for a few years and still working on, the programming and neutralization and 0 point. These kids are fresh.
Yeah.
Their explosiveness and their illumination, I think, is going to be a lot different than what we've been experiencing.
Yeah. If we could
So,
keep them linked into what they're passionate about, it's all
yeah,
golden.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or they can just be like Anise and go, I do what I want.
Yeah.
Hey, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Wow.
Love
Thank you
you.
so much. This was
Absolutely.
for neither one of us knowing where any of this was or having thank
Both
you.
of us, yeah, isn't that crazy? But there's telepathy for you. We were both thinking, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. How am I going to do this? And then it happens. So it's
There
all
you go.
beautiful. You take care. If I don't
All
talk
right.
to you, have a wonderful holiday.
Yeah, you
And
too.
and I'll see you when I see you. Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.